What is up, everybody? Good morning. Episode 22 of the Ball Guys show starts in 30 seconds. What is up, everybody? Yes, episode 22 is on. Today's episode is brought to you by Tito Puente Jr.'s Hot Sauce. Guys, go to Tito Puente Jr., Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com. Get your hot sauces. Listen, if you know me, I don't promote nothing I don't believe in. As you can see, these things have been open already. The only one I have not opened has been the Mambo Diablo. I've been kind of intimidated by this one, but I'm actually doing a brisket, okay, this weekend. So I'm gonna incorporate this one into my brisket. I'll let you know how that tastes. But let me tell you, you put it into I've added to my chili, I've added to my soups, I've added to my arroz con pollo, and it tastes amazing. But you go to that website, go to Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com. You get 4 hot sauces, and you get an awesome CD celebrating Tito Puente Sr. 20 years after his death. He's been gone for 24 years now. But man, and speaking of Tito Puente Jr., I have him on the show today, and let's talk. We're gonna hear a lot about Tito Puente and Tito Puente Jr. Tito Puente is the king of the timbales. If you don't know who he is, let me tell you something. Chances are, music you've been listening to from the 50s all the way to 2000, chances are you have Tito Puente listening Tito Puente's music in there. Okay? Man, what else can we say about him? Over 150 records he's been a part of, a bunch of Grammys, a walk in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's also a veteran. He served in our military, World War II. Okay? But let me tell you something. His son is no slouch. There can only be one king. So we're going to call Tito Puente Jr. the Prince of the Timbales. And let's welcome him on. Tito Puente Jr. What's up, my brother?
What's up, JC? What an intro, man.
Man, let me tell you something, man. Love you, bro. I love you. Love your music. Like I say, you're no slouch, man. Let me tell you, your dad was a badass. Still is to this day.
There he is, right there. Handsome fella. El Rey de Timbal, yes, passed away 24 years ago, and we still celebrate his 100th centennial anniversary. He would have been 100 years old this year. So it's incredible to be a part of the whole tradition of Tito Puente. I love the intro. You plugged the hot sauces, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, and I've promoted him a number of times on my episodes because, listen, I love them. What's awesome about the hot sauces, okay, and is that I like a little heat. But I love flavor. I don't like the heat where where's the water?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the milk? No. This has good flavor. It has a little heat. It's not overpowering, and it has good heat. So great job with the hot sauces, dude.
Gracias. I love celebrating Tito Puente, but I wanted to do something really special for everybody. When we recorded the album, The King and I, that you just displayed, my wife came up with the idea. She said, why don't you give something to the fans that besides the music, maybe they like something. I said, what is everybody doing? This was probably during the pandemic. They're like, what's everybody doing at that time? Well, everybody was eating food. So I said, man, let me come up with some hot sauces. So I met un puertorriqueño, un chef de Puerto Rico, and he gave me about 14 different vials of different flavors. He said, pick four. Let's start with four, and then we'll go to 8, and then we'll go to 12 different flavors. So right now, I'm going to put out another 4 flavors. You got the first 4 right there. We're going to put out some more ones with more fruity flavor. Yeah, they're doing very well. I got 5-ounce bottles. I got to send you some. I got the bigger bottles now. Everybody was in demand. And tomorrow, speaking of the hot sauces, tomorrow, not only do I have the 5-ounce bottles that are on sale at Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com, we got the brand new Tito Puente. I'm wearing it right now. The Tito Puente Centennial shirts. They will be available starting tomorrow at 12 o'clock, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. So you get the hot sauce, you get the T-shirt, and the whole record, and I'll sign them for you. And it's all one big bundle. And very, very happy to have fans that love the music and love the salsa.
Well, like I said, Tito Puente, legend, but you're not far behind. Your dad, I guarantee your dad was here sitting with us right now. He's like, my son, I'm proud of you. My wife and I had the privilege. Thank you for that we got to see you in December here in Dallas. Great show.
Gracias.
Your energy is incredible.
Gracias.
So folks, you have the opportunity whenever Tito Puente Jr. comes to your town, you do not want to miss his show. Like watching his dad. You're watching his dad. You're watching Tito Puente Jr. You're watching Tito Puente. You're watching his dad. Dude, tell us a little bit about your background before you get into your dad. We're gonna be talking about your dad. We're gonna be talking about you. I want to hear about you first. Let's hear about your background. Where exactly you're from, and how. Obviously, we know how you got started into music is thanks to your dad, but give us a little bit more details.
Well, I was born and raised in New York City, in Spanish Harlem, New York, just like my father was before me. My whole family still lives and resides in New York City. There's a little section of Manhattan called El Barrio. It's a small contingency of Puerto Ricanos. They live in a 10-block by 12-block radius in Spanish Harlem. They call it El Barrio. And a lot of great musicians came from that little small section of New York City, where we have Tito Rodriguez, Tito Puente, Machito, Joe Cuba, Mark Anthony, TKA, all these great Latin artists came from this little section of Manhattan. And I was born there. Then we moved throughout the 70s and 80s to different apartments throughout New York City as my father's fame became more popular. We were like the Puerto Rican Jeffersons. We moved on up. and then we ended up moving upstate New York, and we bought a home and a house. And New York has always been my home. You could tell by my accent. And the music that you hear that my father was playing was New York homegrown mambo music. It has that element of swing jazz music from the Count Basie, Duke Ellington era to the music of Afro-Cuban music and the Puerto Rican, Dominican, Colombian sound of mambo music, we call today salsa. And being born and raised, I'm an 80s baby, man. I'm an 80s kid. I think we're called Gen X. Is that we are? We're Gen X. I think we're the same age. I'm 53, but I liked the 80s was my favorite decade.
Me too. I'm 47. Yeah. I think I was born a little late. My favorite music is the late 70s, and definitely 80s is the best time for music. Freestyle is my favorite kind of music. But freestyle, la salsa de ese tiempo was the best. Merengue, the best from de esa época. So I'm an 80s baby also. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the greater decades because I believe that at that time my father was playing with his Latin jazz ensemble. Dance music was very popular. Freestyle and house music was very popular in the nightclubs. So the younger kids at that time, the urban youth, los Latinos in the inner cities were listening to music that had the timbales, the conga, the bongo, all that sound, all that cool sound and that clave rhythm within the freestyle and dance music. And that's what really got people on dance floors. and that really was the whole vibe of the whole decade. And I appreciate the fact that I got to live at that. I would have right now. I look at my teenage kids, and I'm like, man, you guys missed the boat. I wish you guys grew up when we grew up, because it was so much fun. Roller skating, going to the movies. We didn't have the internet or cell phones. We had beepers, and it was the best time. And I think it was great meeting people. You fell in love by writing notes to your boyfriend or your girlfriend. It was just so enamoring. It was an enamoring time. It was an enamoring decade. And Tito Puente was part of that. As my father grew throughout his popularity, at that time, salsa romantica became popular. Frankie Ruiz, the young Jerry Rivera, he was very young, at 18 years old back then. And of course, all the other greats, Celia Cruz, Eddie Palmieri, Charlie Palmieri, all those greats were coming and really blossoming, passing the torch, if you will, to the newer generation of salsa artists. Tony Vega, Tito Nieves, Jose Berto El Canario, those great salseros of the 80s and 90s really shined a light on salsa music, and it blossomed into salsa romantica. But Puente, my father, was right in the mix, man, and it was cool hearing freestyle dance music and salsa.
And it's amazing. You mentioned your dad, like I said, we're going to go back and forth. Your dad was there, dude. Going back, if I remember reading correctly, your dad really got into music in the 40s. As
Yes.
a teenager, maybe late teens. So
Yeah.
So since the 40s, think about that. 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
About 6 decades.
Until the time of his death. So he's been part of every era, every style of music.
Mm-hmm.
From rock and roll to
Yes.
freestyle.
To dance music to freestyle. Yeah, he dabbled in those things, and well, I guess what they call is reinventing himself. So every decade he would reinvent himself. Tito Puente was a pioneer in the 1930s and 40s with the music of mambo, rumba, cha-cha-cha in the nightclubs of New York City, and that's when it was very popular to do that cha-cha dance and mambo music. It wasn't called salsa at the time. Then in the 60s, when the Beatles came into America and started flooding the rock and roll thing, and I think my father's influence gravitated towards those rock stars, and thus came Carlos Santana, who created a sound that became Latin rock in the end of the 60s into the 70s. And of course, the great song Oye Como Va became a worldwide hit. Tito Puente wrote that in 1963. So 10 years later, Santana redid the song. So my dad went into rock music, mambo music. Then in the 70s, as the 70s started to close, there was a group called Sugar Hill Gang. And he started working with those cats. He played on the theme. He was one of the first Latin band leaders to play on a hip hop record with Sugar Hill Groove. It was incredible that he played on that record. That was 1978, and he played on that with Sylvia Robinson. And then the 80s came. Tito Puente was featured. Now we have the music of freestyle and dance music. He worked with Little Louis Vega, La India, Mark Anthony, all those great artists that were in the dance music at that time. And Tito Puente played on a song called Clave Rocks by Amaretto. He played the timbales there. And that was in 1986, and that became a huge hit for him. And then, of course, in the 90s, he started dabbling into jazz until his untimely passing in 2000. But you could tell what I just told you guys, after 4 or 5 decades, he would jump into all types of genres of music. And not only that, he also played with symphonies and, of course, around the world, playing in the Far East with different artists, from Australia to Indonesia. He also went to Germany, played with some musicians over there too as well. So he was a multifaceted international artist.
And what's amazing about him was that, like you said, he reinvented himself. He kept going with. He was never out of style. He was never out of style. He was always cool. And how many people can say that they were on Sesame Street?
Yeah, getting into a fight with Oscar the Grouch.
Hey, who are you? I am Tito Puente.
That's right. And then he's like, well, we don't want that music here. And he's like, oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing. You have to be a superstar to be on Sesame Street, man.
Yeah. So besides your dad, besides Tito Puente, who else are your influences? Who else were, or did you not have anybody else? Not that you need any other influences. I mean, but who else?
Yeah, what? JC, we had this conversation. Me personally, and I think you know this, and a lot of maybe your viewers might not know, but I personally love rock music. I'm a rockero. I like the heavy metal stuff. It's kind of ironic because I'm playing mambo music, but I like the Iron Maiden, the Metallica, all those heavy bands. Got into that. I think because in the '80s we had all types of music on the radio. We had the Michael Jacksons, we had the Madonnas, and we had the Bon Jovi and the heavy
Yeah.
stuff. I was always against the grain. It was great hearing all types of music on different radio stations. And then you would hear Tito Puente, and my father would be playing jazz and merengue, he loved merengue, and of course all the cumbia music that came from Colombia at the time. He really indulged in that. He didn't care for rock music, but when Carlos Santana redid his song, he kind of liked it after that because he got a nice check from that.
Like that.
So there you go. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I like rock music.
Yeah, me too. Listen, I'm one that I'm fascinated with music. I am, and I'm surprised I'm not a musician. I'm not a musician. I'm not a DJ. Never been. Uh, I'm not. I'm not a singer. You don't want to hear me sing. Although you'll hear me sing in the radio. You hear me sing some of the freestyle songs, even the salsa songs and stuff like that. But you don't want me to sing. But I but I'm fascinated with music. My favorite music is freestyle. My favorite
Mhm.
all-time band is Chicago from the
Yes.
70s, especially from the 70s. But I love Kiss, I love Poison, I love Bon Jovi, I love rock also. I love hip hop. Me encanta
Yes.
todo. I love it all. I am somebody who loves music in general. You know,
Mhm.
um, man, I mean, I have so many. I have a bunch of questions for you, man. I mean, um, and so how long have you been performing? How long have you been playing? How long have you been performing?
I've been performing Tito Puente music since it's been 20 years. Since 2003 was my first album called En Los Pasos de Mi Padre. So that's 21 years now. That's 2024. But I've been playing music professionally. My first release was a song called Sound of Latin Rhythm. It came out in 1993. So I'm going on 31 years performing professionally. But prior to that, I played in my heavy metal band in high school. I was in drumline. I love playing drums in different bands, and I would travel with my father too. So I would sit in with him a lot of times. So performing live, I've been doing it for almost 40 years. But
Wow.
my professional career in recording has been 31 years, and I've won numerous awards. And I'm so proud of them, and I can't believe I even got them. I still flabbergasted. I look on my walls and say, "How did I make it this far?" Like on my own recognizance, because everybody always compares me to Tito Puente. And a lot of the music that I was doing at that time in the 90s was dance music and house music. And I got my own little recognition for that. And I appreciate, the fans that stuck with me all the way through. But now, today, at the age of 53, I continue my father's legacy. And all his music sounds so fresh and so new and vibrant. And I know you've experienced that at the concert. But I started my professional career about 31 years ago, and my recording career, and it hasn't stopped since. It's been a wonderful ride. I plan on recording some new music this year, and I'm going to keep it going. Hopefully, I can live past the age of 77, like my father. I can maybe retire and one day experience what he wanted to experience, which is bringing his music around the world.
I mean, yeah, and many people hear you right now and they say, "Well, he only plays his dad's music." And first of all, you made your dad's music your own, but they don't realize that they don't know that. Yeah, you have freestyle music. You did music with Ray
Yes,
Well. You did music with, you've done music with Sheila E.
yes.
You've done music with different artists that
Hmm.
that's not just
Yeah.
Spanish music.
I
So
had a
you've done
freestyle. I had a record label called Puente Records, and I recorded with my buddies from the Nasty Boys, my brother Shy, and we had a group called TLR, which is the Latin Rhythm. It was Tito Puente Jr. and the Latin Rhythm, and we put out a couple of records back in 1993 as well. At that same time, I was putting out dance music records. I wanted to dabble in freestyle music because I felt freestyle was so hot at the time, and I felt it was kind of blossoming into electro pop. It was going in that direction with all that tweaking and that wah, 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 the Jocelyn Enriquez sound, that West Coast feel was coming out, and of course the funky melody of Stevie B. So I put out a record with the group. It was called Unforgiven Love, and it went number one in a couple of countries. And we didn't think that it would do anything. We just kind of rode that wave, and all of a sudden Canada reached out to us and they were like, you guys are number one on our station and we want you guys to come up here and do a tour. And we ended up going up there, and we didn't realize how big it was. And we found out when we got to the airport and all these screaming girls, and we were like Menudo up there. But yeah, it was wild. And I didn't realize how much music, and especially dance music and freestyle, resonates. It's not just a New York thing, Texas, Miami, and California. It's everywhere. Chicago too as well. But it goes to other countries. Brazil loves freestyle. Well, you know that, JC. Oh, they go crazy for it.
Ray was huge over there. As a matter of fact, I hit him.
Yeah.
And he told me he was currently in Brazil. I think he's back in the States. But he was in Brazil. I had Noel Valle, NV, known professional as NV.
Yes.
I had him on the show a few weeks ago. And he was in Japan. He said Japan. He went to Japan, and Japan loves. They
love it.
So it's amazing how freestyle and dance music has been loved all around the world.
Yeah.
Colombia, love.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, my wife, I don't know if you remember, my wife is Colombiana, so she loves Spanish music.
And I think salsa and freestyle are certain genres that connect with people, whether through dancing or whether through love and heartbreak and the lyrics of freestyle music. So it all combines, and it all comes from Hispanics and Latinos, man. Freestyle music comes from the Hispanic population and the urban kids who are Latinos from the inner cities, and salsa también from Colombia, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, all the Caribbean countries, Cuba. And it's nice to see that we have different facets about being Hispanic and our different flavors that we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can all come together. Music brings us together. People say, well, food brings us together. So does music. Music brings us together. I love your concert. Your concert was a perfect example. I saw people from all kinds of backgrounds. I saw people. I saw Americans, Latinos, African Americans. I saw
young and old. There was some kids there too. I love that.
You brought little kids up.
Yeah.
You had them play. I felt like a little kid. I said, "Can I be a little kid?" I was in awe. And great job.
Thank you.
Again, great job.
Thank you. Gracias.
Question.
Dime.
What is your favorite song? I know that's got to be hard. What's your favorite song to perform of your own and your dad's?
Wow, that's a good question. There's so many. I mean, the Tito Puente catalog has hundreds of songs. There's so many. I always like the ones that entertain. The Rancancan, the Oye Como Va. Those are very entertaining songs. People are very familiar with them. But I also like playing the real heavy duty mambo ones, like the Babarabatiri. Those are some of my favorites to play. Tremendo Guaguancó, these old Tito Puente classics, and they never go out of style. And then, of course, I have so many different genres of music that I love to listen to, and then all the dance music that I performed throughout the years. I love just performing all that. But anything that has to do with my father's music is so entertaining to play. It's very close to my heart. I feel it. I want you guys to feel it. I feel the audience feels it, and they get it. So I would just say mostly it's those particular songs that I enjoy the most to perform.
That's awesome. I figured. I figured that was the type of answer you were going to give, because again, how can you pick one?
Yeah, too many.
Yeah. Now, what are you most proud of as far as your career? What are you most proud of as far as your dad's career? Not on the personal side, but as far as career-wise, what are you most proud of as far as your career and your dad's career?
I won the best video of the year back in 1996, which is many moons ago. That was 30 plus years ago. But my father won it with me. So we won it together. He was in the music video of Oye Como Va. I redid the song. And it was nice to see my father there in the audience see his son win. So I was very enamored by that, and he came after me, and then he won the same year for with a album he did with La India called Jazzin'. And then at backstage, he was like, "Listen, I'm very proud of you." And I think every father wants to, or you want to hear that from your parents, that they're real proud of you. And I think today his spirit lives within me, and I always feel like he's always saying that. It's like, you're doing a good job. Keep it moving. Keep going in the trajectory that you're doing, and keeping my name alive. I think my father had a little bit of an ego too. He's like, just as long as, he was like, I named you after me, so that way people will remember. So keep my name out there, so that way everybody will continue remembering who I was in my music. And I do that with every bit of my heart, and I do it for the love. So I hope he's proud of that.
Is there Tito Puente the third?
Yes, there is. My son, little Tito Puente Jr. He's doing homework right now. Yeah, I keep him studying. Does he play? Bueno, más o menos. A little bit. He plays a little bit. But I take him with me on the road. He's just turned 16 years old. And when I was 16, I traveled with my father, too. I had a little license, and I drove him to all the nightclubs in New York, Copacabana, Tropicana, all that. And so he's doing that kind of for me, setting up the drums. I try to guide him, but I don't push him to take after his grandfather. But I did name him Tito Puente the third. So he got, the pressure's on. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's hilarious. And that's good. And your dad played also with the likes of Celia Cruz, La India, La Lupe.
Yes.
What other names can you just mentioned a boy. I can compare La Lupe and Celia Cruz, which are two legends. Mm-hmm. Who did you think was a better singer?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot, because Celia Cruz was like my madrina. She was my godmother. She was there when I was born, so I have ultimate respect for her. They're going to represent her on the United States Quarter this year. La Lupe, however, had a very extensive career with my father, an incredible performer, an incredible singer, and I'm very good friends with her daughter, Rainbow, who looks exactly like a spitting image of her. And they are both incredible Afro-Cuban performers that really shine the light on Afro-Cuban music. But think about it. Tito Puente worked with a lot of different females, not just Celia and other. We got to talk about Sheila E. We got to talk about Gloria Estefan. We got to talk about, Rita Moreno. We could talk about, all the great Latin performers and singers, Olga Guillot, and just the incredible male singers that he worked with too. The Domingo Quiñones, Tito Nieves, Oscar de Leon, Mark Anthony. There's so many great singers. Gilberto Santa Rosa, Frankie Ruiz, Hector Lavoe. The list goes on and on the great singers. But out of all of them, I always give my love and respect to Celia, because she was the closest to my father, and they traveled the furthest throughout this entire planet to bring that music to people. And so I have ultimate respect for her and what she did in her entire career with Tito Puente.
But look, I'm getting goosebumps, man. I'm getting goosebumps. Listen, my family loved Celia Cruz. My family loved Tito Puente. When I told my mom that we had the privilege of meeting you, my mom goes, "Really?" And my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law goes, "Mami, por fin, I'm going to get to talk to Tito Puente Jr." Así, qué bueno.
Hecho.
They love your dad, man. Your dad is loved to this day. And Sheila E. And the list, and let me ask you this. Was I correct? Was it about 150 records that he did?
The exact number. Yeah, the exact number that from the estate of Tito Puente has counted, including compilations. Tito Puente, and he also has features like Clave Rocks and River Ocean featuring India with Little Louis Vega. All the samples and everything. We're at 186. I included everything, every little thing that we've discovered. But Tito Puente recorded so much more, and there's so many unreleased tracks. And he's been, my dad went to places like he would go to somebody's backyard in their garage, and they would be like, "Oh my God, Tito Puente's in my house. Could you play something?" And they would press record, and he played something on the timbale, bien fuerza, and that's considered a recording too. So the ones we counted that have been commercially released, we're at the 186 mark. As far as albums that Tito Puente did, he's at about 100, I think, in 28 completed records. And it has to be a world record, JC. So I got to call up Guinness, man. Yeah, it's insane.
They have to have a book, a chapter just on Tito Puente stuff.
Yeah, maybe what is that? 2 records a year for 100 years? I don't know, something like that. That's amazing.
That is crazy. That's a lot.
It's such a crazy catalog, and I never. Sometimes I scratch my head. I said, "Where's all that music?" And then we have a vault in New York where Tololo Papele, the music papers of Tito Puente, are at, and there's 10,000 arrangements in there. So I'm like, my God, all this music, and he recorded it, and well, it's just it's an entire 6 decade of a man's life and his recordings that cannot be compared to anybody else throughout the history of time. That's why I always put Tito Puente there with Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, those great Mozart. Those men made the most incredible arrangements, and they made music for decades and decades. Tito Puente has to be put in that category there.
If you were gonna do a Mount Rushmore of music, because I hear I'm a wrestling fan also. I grew up a wrestling fan, and they're always like, "Oh, who's your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?" Well, Hulk Hogan, blah blah blah. If you're gonna do a Mount Rushmore of music, Tito Puente has to be one of the 4.
I believe so. I think so. I would say just in the general market too. I won't just say in salsa. I would say in the general world,
Yeah.
Puente. I would dare to say you would put, Elvis in there because he was extremely popular. But I mean, you have to put, the likes of Diana Ross. I mean, there's so many. You could put Kenny Rogers in there with the country. But in the genre of just Latin music in general, that includes Mexican music, cumbia music, Colombian music, Peruvian music, all the music from South America, Central America, España. Out of all the Latin artists ever, from the beginning of Latin music's creation, Tito Puente was the one that really pushed it the most and the furthest around the world. I will give exception to the pop stars like the Ricky Martin, Mark Anthony, Gloria Estefan, Jennifer Lopez. They have really expanded what my father really presented before them. He did it for 6 decades. I think Jennifer's been doing it for about maybe 30 years. So she has another 30 more years to go, and same with all those other artists too. Julio Iglesias, those greats like that. They've lasted a very long time, but with the contingent upon what Tito Puente laid the foundation for them. And that's what they'd still honor it. And even guys like Bad Bunny, biggest stars in the world,
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, Tito Puente paved the way for them. He's the one that laid the foundation. So that's why people that come after, that's great, but the people that set the tone, and he set the bar ridiculous.
Mount Rushmore all the way, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think he will be the first one there. And I mean, not taking anything away from Beethoven. Beethoven, obviously, we're listening to his music to today still, and this, a couple 100 years later. Pero Tito Puente, man, made an impact. It's like incredible.
Yeah. It's an incredible impact that's far-reaching.
To me, he's Tito Puente. To you, he was dad. Who was dad? Who was dad? How was dad and grandpa? How was Tito Puente at home?
I never got to meet my grandfather. And by the way, those viewers who are watching, my father's name is his real name is Ernesto Antonio Puente Jr. Tito Puente is my actual name without the junior. I had to add the junior as a stage moniker so that way they could differentiate me from my father. However, my father got the name Tito because back in the 1920s and 30s, when he was a young child, the kids in the street would say Ernetito, Ernetito, which is a derivative of something very small, chiquito, poquito. In Spanish, we use that ito as something very small and tiny. And my father was vertically challenged. He was only 5'3" as a stout man, but he was a short guy and a short kid. So they would say, Ernetito, your grandma's calling you, or your mother's calling you. And that's where he got the nickname Tito. So Tito Puente became a little bridge in English. And my grandfather was Ernest Anthony Puente Sr., born in San Germán, Puerto Rico, and moved here in the early 1900s and worked at a razor blade factory where they made razor blades in Brooklyn, New York. He was not a musician. My father was the only musician. He was a dancer first and then became a musician after a bicycle accident or something. And then he turned to music at a very young age, at like 8, 9 years old, started doing piano lessons. And piano is a percussion instrument. And that's how Puente became, the history books as that. We're doing a documentary series on the life and legacy of Tito Puente. Should be out at the end of this year. I'm very excited. We're in pre-production. And you will learn a lot more about quote unquote dad because I'm going to show you guys exclusive footage of my father at home when we did like Christmas and Thanksgiving, funny jokes, us playing pranks on him, just cute stuff. And you hear him speak. You won't see Tito Puente on stage. Everybody's seen that. You go to YouTube and see that. We're going to show the man, the myth, the legend on his characteristics. I'm going to show you him angry, yelling at us as kids. My mom filmed a lot of that. She was always with a camera, my mother, and I appreciate that. In the 1970s, she had that. It was a silent one, but she had a video camera. And then in the 80s and 90s, we would play pranks on him and jokes on him. We would pick up the phone and listen on the other end. He'd be like, "Get the fuck off the phone!" Stuff like that. Yeah, just funny stuff like that. And it was really cool being his son. I miss him dearly. And that characteristic and that comedic side of Tito Puente, he was very down to earth. And if you ever met him, or those of you who are watching right now ever got to experience the joy of being around him, the man could light up a room, he would make you laugh, and he took pictures with everybody. So he was just a great dad all around.
Well, and that's also that you guys are doing documentary. Because I was going to be one of my questions. Is there going to be a documentary on this man or a book? There's got to be something, especially with all the when you mentioned the vault of all the stuff on him, everything he's written and all that stuff. I go, is there going to be a book or something? But documentary is even better. I love to read, but documentary is better because you get to see footage, and fans like to see.
Yeah,
that.
it's funny. It's funny you say that to me, JC, because a lot of people have been asking me to write a book myself. And what was it like being the son of a king? And I'm writing it as I go, and I feel like I'm going to get there soon. Maybe when I'm 55, in a couple of more years, I think I'm going to start writing some memoirs about my experience of being his son, and the good and the bad, the ugly, the nepotism that I felt being his son. Sometimes you get pulled over by a cop, and I'm like, "I'm Tito Puente," and they're like, "Hey, that's great." And then other times they're like, "I don't know who that is." You're still getting a ticket.
It's funny because some people, I mentioned to some people, "Hey, you know Tito Puente?" You go, "No, I don't know." Go, "Well, have you heard the song?" Yeah.
Yes.
He's
Yeah. They connect it. Yeah, they connect it.
Yeah. So I mean, those who are Latinos really know who Tito Puente is.
Of course.
But many Americanos, many Americans, unfortunately, might not.
Right.
But they don't realize that when. That's why I said in the intro. Chances are, if you listen to any song from the 50s all the way to 2000, Tito Puente is somewhere involved.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you don't even realize it. As you go through your day, you're going to see either a timbal or a drumstick or hear something on the radio that has to do with, there's like 6 degrees of separation. Tito Puente is probably like 1 or 2 degrees for every Hispanic and every Latino, as we all listen to the conga, the bongo, the timbal, something, or Oye Como Va played every day on the radio. If you go on a rock station, you hear it. Pop station, you hear it. In the elevator. It's amazing.
What other instruments do you play? You said the drums, and obviously the drums is a part
Yes.
of. But what else do you play? Do you play anything else? Or
Yeah, I started out on bass. I was telling you that the night we were hanging out. I'm a frustrated bass player. That's why I play drums. But I play timbal, I play conga, I play piano as well, and I play bass. I try to stick to the rhythm section. I never got to play horn, but Tito Puente, my father was in the U.S. Navy. He did play saxophone, so he knew how to play brass and woodwind instruments. But I stuck to more of the rhythm section, which is bass, piano, and the drums. And I kind of mark around with them, and I think I got most of that influence from the rock music and the hip hop and all that stuff I was listening to, where I feel those notes. But my dad, I'm very proud that my father pushed me to go read and write music. And that's something that I encourage anybody that's watching right now. If you have kids that are, talented and they want to really get into the real deep heaviness of music, learn how to read and write just music and rudimentary music. You don't have to learn the Gregorian chant method or something that you need to audition for Juilliard School of Music, but at least learn how to read and write notes, G clef, bass clef. It's very important, so that way you can become a studio musician and make some money, doing what you'd love to do the most. Remember, this whole thing, my father taught me that. He's like, surround yourself with creative people, thus you'll be creative. And if you're not doing this and you're not having fun at your job, then it's not really a job if you're having fun. And that which is really just safe for anything that you do in this world. I enjoy performing Tito Puente music and bridging people to his character, his music, his life, his legacy, because it's so rich and enthralling and inspiring. There's the word that I've been using a lot. Tito Puente was an inspiration to many people, including musicians,
yeah,
and even you yourself. You said you don't even sing or play music. You're just a fan, but he's inspired you just as a human being to become something greater than ourselves.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny you say about if you have a child or something. My son, who's 19, he loves music. He loves drums, and now he's been playing the piano or the keyboard. He's been learning. He's been learning the keyboard. He's been teaching himself pretty much. He goes online and he learn he pretty much, well, with all the
Mhm.
technology nowadays. You don't necessarily have to go to school for that.
Right.
But going back to you, do you was your dad your teacher pretty much, or did you learn how to?
No. I had to go to school for to learn how to read and write music and to play. I work with a gentleman named Sam Ulano. He's a drum teacher. God rest his soul. He passed away. Excellent jazz musician. And I learned rudimentary. My father did not have patience, paciencia, they call it, patience. He was very on the go, and he was only home. Oh wow, he did about 200 plus shows a year out of 365 days a year. That's a lot of days not being home, and I would even go as far as saying he was almost absent from my sister and my life simply because he was working so hard at a young age. Of course, as I got older, my mother didn't like that anymore. So she decided, thank God for my mother, Margie Puente, who's still with us today. She said, why don't you go on the road with your father during the summer when you're not in school? So at the age of 13, 14 years old, I would travel with my father to the Far East, to Japan, the Orient, to Korea, and to Indonesia, all those beautiful countries that I never thought I would ever go to. And I was a kid. And I was like, and he would just tell me, listen and watch me and don't say nothing. And I would watch him, and then I understand how the music industry works, how his style of rudimentary playing worked, and I learned a lot just from being around a genius like that. But when I did go home, and he sent me home, I would learn from teachers, and I went to Five Towns College, and shouts out to all the alumni of Five Towns College out there in Seaford, Long Island. What a great school! I love that college simply because it was a vocational school where your testing was you going out and getting a gig and playing. And your teacher, the professor, would come to the gig and see if you knew the songs that you had to study. And that's really where the essence of performing live got instilled in me. So, but no, Tito Puente did not teach me how to play drums. No.
And that's also, your mom is still, around.
Yes. Yeah.
Does she talk about your dad still? Does she?
Yes. Yeah, she has an excellent memory, and I love hearing her stories. And as we move forward with the documentary series, she will be, of course, part of it. She's the runs the estate of Tito Puente, so she's providing us with all this great footage, great unreleased stuff, exclusive things, and she's just a wonderful mom. 82 years young, man, but she's doing it. Yeah,
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. What's next for Tito Puente Jr.? What's in store for 2024? I know we have
Hermano,
today.
oof.
We have a concert today, Saturday.
Oh,
We have a concert in Hollywood. Talk to you about
yes. And so this afternoon and this evening, we're doing the 100th centennial celebration of Tito Puente here in South Florida at Hollywood Young Circle in downtown Hollywood, Florida. It's a free concert. So if you guys are in South Florida or you know anybody in South Florida, give them a call. Tell them to come out. It's totalmente gratis. That's the magic word. Free for everybody. I'm going to have a full 13-piece orchestra along with my man Tony Zucar on timbales, Mimi Zucar, Jay Zamorado, Ceci, Timba Live will be performing. So we got Cuba, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Peru, Chile. We got all the countries being represented today. It's going to be free concert, 4 p.m. till 11 p.m. tonight, Saturday, March 9th. And I'm excited for everybody to come on out. And if you guys can't come to the show, I have many concerts coming in the future. JC, we're heading back to, of course, Texas. We love it over there. And we would love performing in D-Town. And of course, all the cities in Texas, San Antonio, Houston. I'm going to do a whole slew of those later on this year in August and September. So I look forward to seeing you. And if you want more information, man, all I tell everybody to do is go to my social media at Tito Puente Jr., Instagram. They call it X now, but it was Twitter. And of course, Facebook.com/Tito Puente Jr. and TikTok. I'm on TikTok as well. And check out all those tour dates. We got all the links in there. We're doing these massive tours, performing with Sting, Seal, ZZ Top, May the 5th in Redondo Beach, California. Jose Feliciano concert in August in the Redlands, California. And then we have a big concert happening in Venezuela. We're going to Germany, Hawaii, and Australia in November. So we're going international this year, bringing the music of Herrera Timbal Tito Puente. And don't forget about that hot sauce.
You're not slowing down.
Unbelievable.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to. I'm originally from South Florida. I was born and raised in South Florida.
Right.
I'm here in Texas.
Yeah, you told me that.
And I'm looking forward to you coming back. Or I'm gonna go see you whenever I go visit Florida. My daughter's still in Florida, so I'm gonna encourage her.
Yes.
To come check you out on tonight. I'm gonna encourage her to come see you tonight. Since she lives over there.
Yeah, so. More than happy. She got VIP, man. Tell them to bring the whole family. Bring grandma and grandpa. Bring the dog. Everybody. It's all free.
I'm gonna tell her to stop by and
yes.
Go say hi to her from the Ortega.
And I'll to come by and say hello to Uncle Tito. We'll have T-shirts. We'll have a lot of hot sauce, and we're gonna have some salsa. And we got salsa dancers on stage too as well. It's gonna be a fantastic evening.
All right, before we say bye, let's check here.
Eso.
So, guys, tonight, do not miss it. South Florida, Tito Puente Jr. with the whole. He just told you everybody's gonna be. You saw it. He's gonna be playing. You do not want to miss it. It's a free concert, guys. Great show. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. And again, get your hot sauces. Get your hot sauces. Get your hot sauces.
Tito Puente Jr. Hot.com.
Yes. And all his information, guys, will be on the description, in the comments. All his information will be there. Tito. Bro. Love you, bro. God bless you, man. Thank you for finally being on the show. Guys, God bless you.
Muchas gracias, JC. I love you, brother. And I'll see you soon, man, in Big Town, Texas. And love to all your viewers. And que viva Tito Puente. Vaya!